The college football playoff rankings are out. Joe, the top five unscathed. Nobody moved up, nobody moved down. But we are not going to read through the top 25. What Joe and I do is we're not going to give you a list. We're not going to read down it. We just suggest, if you're watching this segment that is presented by our good friends over at FanDuel, by the way, that you go and look at the top 25 for yourself. But Joe, the top 25 is out for the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, or from the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. What are your thoughts?
Well, one, this is just a very offhanded one. I think Iowa staying in the rankings is deserved. The way that they played against Oregon was worthy. Now, where I have issues. Why are we placing these Big 12 teams? Why are we placing BYU after the first time that they played a challenging opponent, they got punched in the mouth? The same thing applied with Utah when they played the same exact team at home that BYU just lost to. They got punched in the mouth. They are ahead. Forget, I could gripe about Miami and their placement. They moved up a lot, up to 15.
Well, they were at 18, were they not?
Yeah. They moved up 3 spots. It's a pretty big jump for not really doing anything and playing Syracuse. Blake, I think that Vanderbilt needs to be ahead of both of those Big 12 teams.
I agree.
I think that it is ridiculous that we're in this position, Blake, after watching both of these teams. The only time that they've played in a challenging opponent, forget when they played one another. That's all good and whatever. Who cares that BYU beat Utah and it was a close game? Whatever. That context is not important for this conversation. Put those two in whatever order you want. BYU should be ahead of Utah. Vanderbilt has played a more challenging schedule. They have more respectable wins. And I would argue that Miami also has a more respectable resume as well.
Okay, glad you're back with us.
Did I disconnect?
For like a half a second. It's all good.
This happened last time we were recording the rankings too. For some reason, the playoff committee must be trying to slow me down.
Tony Petitti doesn't like you talking about other conferences.
No.
Big Ten. I agree. Look, BYU being placed at 12 and Utah being placed at 13th. Here's the problem that I have with that. I would have Vanderbilt, Miami, USC, and Michigan all ahead of them. All ahead.
Yeah. I didn't even register. I didn't even look that far. You're right. USC and Michigan should also be ahead of the two of them.
By the way, I'd put Georgia Tech ahead of them too. I'd put Georgia Tech ahead of them too. Because when it all comes down to it, stop Haynes King, who had 500 yards 2 weeks ago. This team got shut out last week. Joe, this is what I'm talking about in reference to records. We talked about this last week. Their record doesn't mean shit. It doesn't. BYU is not a top 12 team. They're not. So when we talk about Texas, when we talk about Oklahoma, when we talk about Miami, when we talk about USC, when we talk about Michigan, we point out the fine problems that they have. Why aren't we doing that for BYU? Why? Now, I could understand Georgia Tech in the metric of strength of schedule that they haven't played anybody. I don't think Georgia Tech deserves to be ahead of USC at the current moment for what it's worth. No. However, Miami has no business being placed at 15th. Neither does Vanderbilt. Hey, Joe, who was Vanderbilt's losses to? Oh, wait, that's right. Vanderbilt's losses was to number 4 Alabama on the road and to Texas on the road that came down to the final play. And you're going to try to convince me because they have 2 losses that they don't deserve to be ahead of BYU. I don't get this. So I got a team in Vanderbilt that lost to number 4 and to number 10, and both of them really competitive games, and we're just saying, well, they have an extra loss. Well, they have an extra loss because they faced 2 top 10 teams. It's a joke. It is a joke. And I got to be real with you since we're on the Big 10 or Big 12. Why is Texas Tech ahead of Ole Miss and Oregon? Don't give me.
I'm conflicted. I'm kind of actually, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm kind of conflicted on this. I don't know if I agree with you or not. I don't know which side I stand on, if I'm being.
All right. Well, let me try to convince you. What is Ole Miss and Oregon done other than lose the game? that Texas Tech also has? Oh, well, Texas Tech beat our number 8 team. Your number 8 team last week had no business being there to start off with. That's number one. Ole Miss's loss is to number 5 by a touchdown. By a touchdown. And what we all agree is a tougher conference. Oregon's loss comes to number 2. To number 2. Texas Tech lost to Arizona State. I get Morton was out. I understand all of that. But just because they played a BYU team that you had at number 8, this means nothing to me when that team is freaking awful, literally awful offensively. Joe, we're talking about Ole Miss's loss being on the road to the reigning SEC champ. To the reigning SEC champ, a team that we all think that could still win the SEC. I'm sorry, dude. This is all bullshit. Having these Big 12 teams ahead of some of these big SEC and Big 10 teams is dog water. By the way, Oregon went on the road on the rain without wide receivers and beat number 21.
Okay.
By the way, they went on the road. The same team that almost knocked off number 2 last week, Oregon did the same thing. Like, Joe, we don't, these dudes don't, these old Rudy Poos.
Okay, hold on.
Watch the games. They don't. You cannot convince me that they watch all the games.
Okay.
Sitting ADs, you have sitting athletic directors who are at their own games, and you're going to tell me you watched all of these? It's bullshit.
Okay. I forget that part for a second here. Let's just focus on the actual rankings themselves, because we can't do that every single week. We just can't. We're wasting our breath on something that we can't change.
It gives me diarrhea.
Someone needs to clip that. Blake, I think that I agree with you on the Ole Miss notion for Texas Tech. I think that Texas Tech has the argument to have moved up over Oregon. Ole Miss, I 100% agree with you. Their one loss that they have this season is to Georgia. Here's the one thing, though, that I will say. We're not supposed to be valuing losses. We're not supposed to be sitting here and prioritizing losses for how we're framing these teams. The one thing that still works in Ole Miss's favor is the way that they played against Oklahoma, and Oklahoma is sitting there at 11. They dogged Oklahoma. They made Oklahoma look incredibly weak, and they're placing them at number 11. That, to me, is enough of a point with the rest of the schedule that they've played and the offensive dominance that they've displayed. I know that they didn't look great against Arkansas in a couple of other spots and Kentucky, but that was at the beginning of the year. They deserve to have sticked at 6. I can absolutely make the argument for Texas Tech to have moved up to 7 and for Oregon to be at 8, though. I think that Texas Tech has shown when Baron Morton is on the field, and they have Baron Morton and they're at full strength, you shouldn't just remove a loss from the equation. But if he is available, finishes the season, goes to the college football playoff when they're making these final decisions, this team is by far the most dominant in the Big 12, and they have dominated every team they have played when he is on the field. Every team that they have played in their conference, they have smoked. It's very Indiana-esque, where they have just completely blown out everybody. Even in the game this past weekend, where they were completely messy and they were not able to finish in the red zone, they still held off and handedly beat this BYU team. I agree with you. BYU was overranked in the first place, and I think it's a little bit of an overinflated data point to say Texas Tech beat BYU. I think that the movement for Texas Tech is justified considering where Oregon currently sits. I think that Oregon is a legitimate threat still. I think that Oregon, as they get healthy and they get back to their full strength, they're going to be fine. But at the current moment, they have shown shakiness. They have shown that they have not played to their truest potential. The Wisconsin game is still lingering. The Iowa game is not the only one that we're using as evidence here. I think that it's not wrong to say that Texas Tech earned the right to move up.
I don't think that I don't hate that they moved up over BYU, but I definitely hate, Joe, you're going to hate me saying this, they did not take the metric of strength of record or strength of schedule into account. They didn't. Because I look at strength of schedule. Now, this is not great for Ole Miss. It sits at 32, but their strength of record is at 6. Okay? You said that you were going to do that, and you didn't. By the way, you want to know the Texas Tech's? It's 61st. So literally, you have a team that doubles your strength of schedule and is ahead of you in strength of record. And the metric that you were supposed to use, by the way, I could do this for Oregon too. Oregon's 24th in strength of schedule, and they're 7th in strength of record. So, Joe, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, Oregon played tougher teams. I get.
But I wait. Okay, I don't mean to cut you off.
Hold on.
Okay.
The resume has got to matter. The teams that you're playing have got to matter. We look at the quality, we look at the wins, and if it's not a ranked win, we don't call it a quality win. I got to be real with you. Penn State is the best team that Texas Tech would have played by now from an athlete standpoint. From an athlete-to-athlete standpoint, sure. Penn State is by far, and Indiana struggled with them. Oregon struggled with them, and they had to go on the road and beat that team. That's just because they're 3-6 doesn't mean that Penn State doesn't have dudes and they're not a good team. Doesn't always indicate your record doesn't always indicate you as a team. Joe, they just I don't get it. They don't look at strength of record and they don't look at strength of schedule when it comes to the metric that you agreed upon.
One other thing that I want to bring up with this.
Okay.
Texas and Oklahoma in their positioning. I'm a little bit intrigued by that. This is a little bit less of a yelling point, more of just a
them being at number 10, Texas being at number 10, and Oklahoma being at number 11.
I think Oklahoma's ultimately boxed out because if they lose to Alabama, theoretically, how far do they fall? Does Vanderbilt leapfrog them? I think, though, that Texas, I know that they're one spot apart from one another. I think that Texas is in one of the most prime positions that they possibly could be in. This obviously requires them to split the Georgia-Texas A&M situation. I think it's a lot to assume that Texas wins out. I think that there's a really hard matchups, and it would require them playing like 10 times better football than they've had this entire season. If they beat Georgia, they move up tremendously. And if they lost to Texas A&M, they wouldn't fall back far enough to completely take them out of the equation. And also, if I'm judging this correctly, they wouldn't be in the SEC championship game, so they would just confidently sit there. If they lose to Georgia this weekend, as long as it's close, they move out of the top 12. But if they beat Texas A&M, they then move up and probably back in as one of the last teams in. Texas has the best position out of any of these bubble teams. I would argue better than Oregon. I would argue better than we can't talk about Notre Dame. Notre Dame has no frame for this because they're not going to get challenged at all. But I think Texas is in a very unique position that if things go according to plan with these two big games coming up, that they could really lock their slot in.
Well, with all due respect to Notre Dame, and I'm going to tell you this, and you're going to yell at me, I got to be real with you. Joe, let's just say hypothetically they beat Georgia and or God forbid, let's say they lose this week to Georgia but find a way to beat A&M. And you have a 9-3 Texas versus a situation where you got a Notre Dame team who played Texas A&M and didn't beat them.
Actually, you're bringing up a really good point here, dude. Notre Dame is in a bad spot right now.
They're in a bad spot. Now, let me throw this at you too now. I don't want to hear, well, Notre Dame played them early in the year because you're assuming that Texas A&M can't get better, which they have. So Texas is going to play the best Texas A&M team to date. Le'Veon Moss will be back. This team is rolling. They got connections with the receivers. I got to be real with you. Yeah, Texas might sit in a great spot. On the inverse of that, if you're Notre Dame, you better be praying. You better be saying, go Dogs all weekend. You better be saying, go Aggies all weekend in about 3 weeks. Texas is a killer to Notre Dame at the current moment because, Joe, you can't look at the record. You can't look at a 9-3 team and say to yourself, oh, well, they're 9-3. Texas is 9-3. They have a loss to Florida. Well, Joe, their 2 losses then would have been to a top 5 Georgia or number 3 Texas A&M and the number 1 team in the country in Ohio State. Now what?
Well, here's the only one thing with Notre Dame. Texas is already in the picture at the current moment. So if this scenario that we're portraying with the 9-3 Texas is in the discussion to get in, I don't know if Notre Dame truly is the team that they're getting positioned against. This is
who would be the other team.
I think that the conversation would be brought up with Vanderbilt. I think that the conversation would be brought up with Oklahoma. So this is part of what's playing in what my argument is. But that's what I'm saying is I think a 9-3 Texas team would deserve to get in over a 2-loss Oklahoma. Well, Oklahoma's probably they would automatically get in over a 3-loss Oklahoma, and I think that they would get in over a 2-loss Vanderbilt team because they would have the head-to-head. That, I think, is the more important matchup to sit here and discuss. I don't know if it's as much Notre Dame, but I think to your point that there's going to be a big counter-argument against Notre Dame. There absolutely is going to be a big counter-argument against them.
But you say that, though, Joe. You say that, and I'm looking at where the playoffs, like what the seeding would be at the current moment. I don't know. I don't know about that because there's going to be shakeup within this too. Because either Bama's going to lose again, A&M's going to lose for the first time. What happens with Miami? I don't know. Does the ACC get left out for Miami when Miami beat them in the beginning of the year? I mean, like, there's a lot to counteract this. But, Joe, I got to be real with you. You better pray to God Texas and Oklahoma start losing here. If I'm just being blunt, you better pray they start losing. And then you do have an interesting conversation with Vanderbilt versus Notre Dame. That's the one that I would want to have a better conversation about because I would say
Notre Dame gets in over Vanderbilt. Notre Dame gets in over Vanderbilt.
No, I agree. I agree with that they do. But you would have to have the conversation of what team deserves to be in there. And that would be more because you're not getting in over Texas. I'm sorry you're not. Because if their losses come to number 1 and number 3, whew, so
they have a Florida loss that's not going to look great in that conversation. That's the thing.
Yeah, but they also have 3. They also have 3 top 15 wins. You don't.
That's fair. Well, Notre Dame would have if Pitt and USC win out and Pitt is still ranked. Then they would have.
They're not going to be. Because you're going to beat them this week, and they're going to fall out of the rankings, and then they got Miami next week.
No, I would argue if Pitt went to the ACC championship game in a couple of weeks, they would probably put them back in the back end of the top 25. If Pitt wins out, they'd be a 3-loss team. It'd be a 3-loss Pitt team.
If they lose this week, they'd be a 3-loss team.
Yeah, and then if they won out and they won the ACC championship game.
Yeah, fair, but I mean, I don't think they're beating Miami. I mean, I know we're playing hypotheticals, but at the same time, I don't know, man. I don't know. Let me go ahead. I was just gonna say I have a chaotic hypothetical that I just want to put onto the table here. I like kind of getting in these nightmare scenarios. If USC beats Oregon, if Texas wins out and beats both A&M and Georgia, these are all plausible things, but this isn't like a ridiculous thing to frame here. These are all like real championship game,
right? So you now have a 1-loss A&M team, a 2-loss Georgia team, a 2-loss Texas team, a 2-loss Oregon team, a 2-loss USC team.
I can't keep up.
I know. There's a lot of layers to this. I'm just saying that would be the most chaotic possible thing that can happen in the next couple of weeks. That absolutely would knock Notre Dame out probably. But I think that is the one thing to pay attention to the most is like what happens in those specific matchups. There you go.
The interesting team here at the current moment, to your point, is going to be USC. Because if USC beats a ranked Iowa this week and then they beat Oregon, Joe, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to this Notre Dame thing. I mean, you better pray to God that they do win out.
Notre Dame has the head-to-head. Notre Dame has the head-to-head, though.
That's what I'm saying. You better. The opposite side starts coming into effect here. That you kind of now need USC to kind of prevail here because it's going to be your biggest win. And if USC finds a way to win out and they go 10-2, then you say, well, look, man, we got a USC team that's in the playoff that we beat. We went on the road to Miami in week 1 and we lost to them. So your strength of schedule starts coming a little bit of like, okay, well, yeah, maybe Notre Dame does deserve to be in here. USC is the most intriguing team to me in all of this. Because if they find a way the next 2 weeks, they could find themselves into this thing. Oregon, again, I mean, like, Joe, are they going to fall all the way out of the top 11? But the problem that I have in this, and I wanted when you were bringing this up, if you look at number 11 and you look at number 12, they're currently right now Miami and South Florida. That means that a couple of these teams are getting left out for an ACC champ that doesn't belong there and a USF team that probably doesn't belong there either.
I don't know how they came up with USF being ranked, by the way. I have no idea where that came from.
Because they blew out whoever.
I mean, that's bad shit. Who did they even play? Wait, who did they? Oh, it was UTSA that they played that they blew out?
I don't remember. I know Tulane kicked the shit out of Memphis, but I know that they played on like a Friday. I remember watching the USF game. I mean, look, I love Alex Golish. His name's about to start popping up in LSU circles here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I need USF out of this thing just in case.
They're not. They shouldn't be a ranked team, period. They are a 2-loss G5 team.
Well,
I just don't know where
who's the highest G5 team. I mean,
what do you mean?
There's going to be
the highest. USF is that they're just kind of throwing them in there. They're just
no, but what I'm saying is there's going to be a 2-loss G5 team. There's going to be an ACC champion.
JMU still could be a 1-loss G5 team.
Let's move past JMU for just a minute. There's going to be probably a 2-loss. Well, that Florida win's going to get USF and then Miami. Joe, a couple of these teams are going to get knocked out because of the G5 again and the ACC. We're going back to our argument last year. We're going back to our same fucking argument. Dude, again, here we sit a year later and we got the same damn argument. The ACC,
which is why the breath of yelling about this is like painful.
But I mean, I get it, and I know that we argued about it, and everybody fought over these teams having a spot. I get it. But, Joe, what if Oregon does lose? I mean, they're at number 8 right now. So if they lose to USC next week, or I know that if they lose to Minnesota, they're not losing to Minnesota. But let's just say that you lose to USC. What do you do with USC? What do you do with Oregon? I see a spot at number 11. I see a spot at number 12 that don't belong to the teams that currently sit there.
I mean, it's a fair.
They don't belong there. You could say, well, Texas is going to lose out, so Oregon deserves to be in. They're going to lose one of those games. But Joe, what if they don't? I mean, again, what if they don't? Then you got to have the God's honest conversation about Texas and Florida, or Texas and Miami. Texas's losses.
You're talking about it in Texas specifically in what regard?
Yeah, because the SEC might get hosed out again in reference to an automatic qualifier from the ACC. Let's just say Texas, who's at number 10 currently, splits Georgia and A&M. However it goes, they're going to have to get in this playoff regardless. Yeah. So that part doesn't matter. What matters here is that you got a 9-3 Georgia team or 9-3 Texas team who's got a loss to number 1 and a loss to number 3, hypothetically speaking, in this scenario. And you're trying to tell me that a 2-loss G5 team or a 2-loss ACC team in Miami deserves that spot over Texas. We're going back to what we talked about with South Carolina last year of the SEC or Oregon getting hosed for one of these teams that have an AQ.
Okay, Blake, I understand why you're bringing this stuff up, but
Joe,
I understand that, but we can't do this every week. We can't, man. We can't do this every single week. I understand the frustration over it.
So then what do we do?
Nothing. We can't change it. We don't have control over changing it.
Here yelling all day.
No one is going to listen to us by yelling all day. I'm sorry. I wish it worked.
This pisses me off.
I will just throw this out there. I'm genuinely kind of disappointed because I felt like last week was a really good starting point, and they already went right back to contradicting themselves. They did. Completely went backward on contradicting themselves. I feel like that there are a lot of issues that come with this. It all comes with that middle grouping. I don't even really think that it's really smart to rank I mean, the Louisville and Virginia deserve to, I guess, stay ranked. I'll be frank, I don't respect any of the ACC teams. As you just sat here yelling, I don't respect any of them. Just put in the team that wins. Let's get better resumes that are in here in the back end higher up. I don't know. I guess we'll see what ends up happening, but this is a very weird launching point because this weekend is going to have some cataclysmic results that completely shift the top 10. And I'm worried, does BYU move up? Does Utah move up? Do we see some of these ACC teams move up? They shouldn't. They should stay exactly where they are. They better, if the committee has any balls, if Texas loses this week, they would move USC up into the top 12 if they won. If they had balls and they wanted to actually live by what they're trying to preach here, they would move up USC because they'd have another ranked win. They'd have a good win at home. And if they do it handedly like we projected in the preview, they would deserve to be in there before BYU and before Utah would.
I don't like kicking out Texas for USC.
If Texas lost this weekend, though, I would think that USC would belong in there over Texas with a better record.
There's no way that you have a human brain and you believe that when the losses come.
We literally did a whole. But okay,
Joe, you're then looking at record.
They have a loss to Florida. And
who does USC have losses to?
Illinois and Notre Dame.
Okay, then be quiet. Illinois
is a no. Illinois is a better team than Florida. Illinois is a better team than Florida this season.
You tell me that Illinois got the dudes up front that Florida does? Get out of my face with that.
That's just one data point that they've got the dudes up front. They've got a better record. They've played better this season.
Joe, again, I said you're about to attack record, and then you confirmed it by saying they
got I don't care. I've said this multiple times that Florida.
The only thing that you Rudy Poos care about is the damn record. No. It's not about the quality team.
I am not one of those people that's saying this bullshit about the record because I just spent the whole 30 minutes saying that BYU and Utah isn't good. I have given Florida credit for being a solid team that can upset teams. But Blake, they got dogged by Kentucky on Saturday. This Florida team is in shambles. Florida did.
Sure. They fired their head coach. It doesn't stop the fact, guess who else is in shambles? Penn State. And they just took Indiana to the fucking wire, and they didn't get moved.
But Indiana didn't lose like Texas did.
Texas
lost to Florida.
Why didn't you move up A&M? So you can't.
Those are not related. Those aren't related because Indiana didn't lose. Indiana didn't lose.
Joe, you basically just said that outcomes against opponents don't matter as long as you win.
No. Indiana didn't lose, and I have a similar result on Texas A&M's resume.
You're confirming exactly what I'm saying.
No, I have two similar results where they had close wins against bad teams in the SEC on Texas A&M's resume.
Against 3 and 5 teams? No, 3 and 6 teams?
What's Arkansas and Auburn's records?
3 and 6.
This is my point. There's no argument to move up Texas A&M, and I think the same thing applies here with why I was yelling with you last week about USC.
It's a better team. They got the number one strength of record and a better strength of schedule. But Indiana just doesn't have an out-of-conference win. I guess we don't weigh that. I guess we just don't weigh that.
Is that a requirement?
It should be. It should be. Going and playing hard teams on the road should be weighted more. Let's just say hypothetically A&M went into Notre Dame last week and did that. Why does it change? Why does it change now? We're so focused on what just happened until it doesn't really matter now when it fits our narrative. Don't come at me with that. It also comes down to a fact of I don't think USC is a better team than Texas is. I don't.
I think USC has put out more competent performances than Texas has one really good game that they played. They've one really good game that they played.
They played competent appearances against Rudy Poo-ass teams.
No.
Joe, they went into Nebraska and almost lost.
They went to Florida and lost.
Who did?
Texas did.
I don't care about.
Texas
I don't care about the Florida loss. It means nothing to me.
It
means
we got super
nothing.
chats we got to get to before we get out of here.
All right, we only got 4 of them. Oh.